The August of 1193 in Verona was hot. Only in the stone corridors of the citadel did the cold grip the heart. Candles in bronze candelabra flickered, casting shadows on the tapestries where the lilies of Alvaris intertwined with the northern lions. Silvana of Severia, a princess of 19 years, stood at the threshold of the royal bedchamber. Her skin, white as snow, burned with shame. Long, golden hair, like sunlight, fell over her shoulders. In her hands, she desperately clutched a sheet, trying to cover her fragile body. Go away. Disappear. The voice of the king of Alvaris thundered like a lightning bolt, shattering the silence. And dare not return. The words of Leonardo II echoed, muffled and hollow, in the stone corridors of the citadel. Guards and servants stood frozen, exchanging glances, as if they themselves could not believe what they were hearing. Silvana, clutching the sheet tighter, backed away, her eyes clear as a northern lake, filling with tears. "I am your wife," she whispered, but her words drowned in the echo of his rage. No one understood what had happened. Had not Alvarez celebrated her arrival just the day before? Had not Leonardo himself, the king, the conqueror, the terror of his neighbors, received his bride like a true knight, in full armor, with spurs, mounted on a proud steed? Fire had burned in the king's eyes then, and everyone believed this union would strengthen two thrones and bring new power to the kingdom. Leonardo II was born in the year 1165, and, from a young age, realized that power was his destiny. In 1179, barely having reached the age of majority, he ascended the throne, and, from then on, step by step, transformed the fragmented kingdom into a strong, united state. He was austere, direct, and impervious to any sentimentality. He was proudly called the King of Alvaris, the first in history, and not merely a king of lands. His first marriage had brought him no happiness. He was united with Elizabeth solely by the need for a dynastic link. The king yearned for heirs, and saw his wife not as a woman, but merely as a vessel for a future king. When she finally gave him a son, Rudolph, Leonardo sighed with relief. Years later, Elizabeth died while giving birth to twins, leaving behind not sorrow, but only emptiness. The king understood that life was fragile, and a single heir was not enough. Death could deprive Alvaris of its dynasty at any moment. "I need an heir, not love," he thought, seeking a new wife. The choice fell upon Silvana of Severia, the young sister of King Thorvald VI. She was unmarried, and therefore perfectly fit for marriage. For Leonardo, the alliance with Severia promised not only a beautiful young bride, but also a significant political advantage. To ally with Thorvald meant a challenge to the Southern League and its ruler, Mark Lionheart. The courts of Alvaris and Severia had long harbored an ancient legend of claims to the crown, and now they had a chance to join forces against a common enemy. On the other hand, Thorvald himself was caught in a political vice. The powerful emperor of the Eastern lands, Henry VI, was increasing pressure, demanding submission. In this context, an alliance with Alvaris seemed like salvation, a way to break free from tutelage and strengthen his own position. Silvana was young, only 19 years old. She arrived from cold Severia, accompanied by ladies of the court and envoys, radiant with a beauty that the Alvarisians rarely saw. Her face shone with tenderness, and her character was quiet and submissive. The milky whiteness of her skin, her slender figure, and her braid the color of the northern sun, everything about her matched the ideals of femininity. Moreover, her brother, King Thorvald VI, made a generous gift to Alvarez of 10,000 silver marks. The Alvaresian envoys, who examined her for health and innocence, assured Leonardo she was immaculate. Leonardo met her at the border, not as an indifferent monarch, but as a knight from a troubadour's song. His armor gleamed in the sun. His lance was lowered as a sign of respect. In that moment, he seemed captivated by her appearance, and no one doubted that this union promised to be lasting. "You will be my queen," he said. His voice was warm and full of hope. Silvana, looking into his dark eyes, smiled. "He is my knight," she thought. Her heart fluttered like a butterfly. The wedding, on the 14th of August, 1193, was sumptuous. Wine flowed, lutes played, and Silvana shone in a pearl diadem. After the ceremony, Leonardo ordered her to be crowned in the Cathedral of Light. Crowds of Veronans cheered her, welcoming the new queen. Musicians played, priests blessed. But the true recognition of the marriage was to happen that night. The consummation, an act confirming the union not only before God, but also before the laws of the dynasty. The servants gently closed the doors of the nuptial bedchamber. Only two remained inside, the formidable king and his tender wife. But in the morning, the entire court heard Leonardo's furious shout. Pale, agitated, with eyes full of cold malice, he drove his wife from his apartment. "She is a witch," he yelled in a trembling voice. "She has bewitched me, depriving me of my strength." Silvana, humiliated by her husband, did not understand what was happening. Standing in her chambers, she wrung her hands nervously. Her tears fell like rain onto the cold floor. "What did I do?" she whispered. Her voice was fragile. Rumors of the king's impotence, perhaps caused by wine or fear, spread through the court. Nevertheless, Leonardo laid all the blame on the innocent young woman, accusing her of witchcraft. "Take her back to Severia," he ordered the envoys. His eyes burned. "Our union is null." The queen, barely recovering from the humiliation, tried to explain herself. She spoke Alvaresian poorly, but her voice trembled as she whispered, "Your Grace, I am your lawful wife. I have done nothing wrong." Leonardo did not listen. His lips were pressed into a thin line. His gaze turned icy. He'd already made his decision. In despair, Silvana wrote to her brother, Thorvald VI. "I will not abandon Alvarez," she wrote. Her hand shook. "I am the queen." Leonardo, without wasting time, demanded the annulment of the marriage from Pope Clement III, claiming that Silvana was related to his late wife. "This is a sin," he declared. But his words were unconvincing. The genealogical ties were too weak. However, beneath the cold words and dubious arguments lay the obvious. The king simply did not want to live with that woman. Silvana was exiled to the Abbey of St. Camilla, near Arlian, where the life of a prisoner, not a queen, awaited her. Everything happened quickly. Barely had Silvana sat on the throne beside her husband the day before, receiving congratulations and smiles from the court ladies. And today, she was being taken far from Verona, like a criminal. The carriage, creaking under the weight of the trunks, pulled away from the citadel, and confusion settled on the faces of the accompanying servants. No one dared to contradict the king, but everyone understood that something unnatural had happened, something that went beyond the scope of court intrigue. Leonardo did not wish to see her. He did not write letters, send gifts, or inquire about her health. Instead of a queen, married and blessed by the church, Silvana found herself a prisoner, locked away in a distant abbey. The monastic walls met her with coldness and silence. The stone corridors echoed her footsteps, and the windows with heavy bars seemed to remind her. Freedom was left somewhere in the past. Her light hair, once bright as moonlight, fell over her shoulders, tangled like her thoughts. Her dress, once brocade of silver, was replaced by a coarse wool habit, and the pearl diadem by a simple veil. The days passed monotonously, reading psalms, prayers, rare walks through the monastery garden. But the main thing was the absence of news. Silvana did not know what was happening at court, who spoke of her, or what the king planned. Nevertheless, she did not give up. Every day, she prayed not only for her soul, but also for justice. And when the opportunity to send a letter to Rome finally arose, she wrote with a trembling hand, "I am the true Queen of Alvaris. I will not renounce my title, nor will I recognize the sinful divorce. Help me regain my honor." Her pride and her faith in justice were the only weapons left to the young woman against the all-powerful king. After Silvana's exile in 1193, Leonardo behaved as if the marriage had never existed. He demanded that the bishops declare the union null. He now accused her of witchcraft, alleging that she had deprived him of his virility on the wedding night. Soon he found a replacement. Her name was Eleanor of the Valley of Mira, sister of the Duke of Miran. Young, brunette, with lively eyes and a soft voice. In her, Leonardo found everything that, according to him, Silvana lacked: passion, affection, the ability to listen and submit. With Eleanor, he felt not like a king oppressed by duty, but like a man who was allowed to love. The wedding was modest, but Leonardo's passion burned like a summer noon. Eleanor, in a dress of green silk, laughed. Her voice tinkled like a small bell. "I will give you children," she promised. And Leonardo, forgetting the Princess of Severia, believed her. But in St. Camilla, Silvana learned of the new union and fell to her knees. "She stole my crown," she whispered. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her brother, Thorvald VI, the king of Severia, was beside himself with rage. "Leonardo has humiliated my sister," he wrote to the Pope, threatening war. The scandal erupted instantly. The news that Leonardo had abandoned his lawful wife and introduced a new one to the palace shocked not only Alvaris, but all of Europe. But Silvana is the queen, married and crowned, people murmured in the cathedrals. Is it possible to reject a sacred union on a whim? The Alvaresian bishops initially supported the king, some out of fear, others for gain, and others in hope of favor. The Council of Compiègne in 1193 declared the marriage of Leonardo and Silvana null. Eleanor of the Valley of Mira, meanwhile, shone in the palace. She gave Leonardo 2 sons. The king did not hide his pride. He called her his true wife, showered her with jewels, and organized feasts in her honor. The peals of bells, announcing the birth of Eleanor's children, did not cease for a long time in Verona. The people rejoiced for the heirs. Courtiers shrewdly bowed before the new favorite, and Leonardo, surrounded by glitter and adulation, seemed to have forgotten everything else in the world. But Rome did not recognize this decision. Pope Clement III insisted firmly, Silvana was the lawful wife. He wrote harsh messages to the king of Alvaris, echoing with anger, "You are bound by the ties of matrimony. You have scorned the sacred. Return to your lawful wife, or you will lose not only the blessing but also your throne." Leonardo clenched his fists at these letters. He felt humiliated. Who dared dictate to the king of Alvaris whom to love and whom to keep by his side? "I am the master in my own kingdom," he retorted to his advisors. "Neither the Pope nor a council will govern my bed." But the threat was too serious to be ignored. Leonardo found himself in a desperate situation. His love for Eleanor and his stubbornness clashed with the wrath of the church and the danger of losing power. He was forced to acknowledge the marriage with Silvana, but this admission was merely lip service. In reality, Silvana continued to live in the monastery under guard, like a criminal. The nobles and priests knew that the king was deceiving them. He had no intention of returning his wife to his bed. In 1200, Rome declared the marriage to Eleanor illegal, accusing Leonardo of bigamy. Alvaris was excommunicated. The bells fell silent, and weddings and baptisms were forbidden. The people murmured, and the barons threatened rebellion. In the streets of Verona, empty without services in the cathedrals, whispers of anger were heard more and more. The king has angered God. His children are illegitimate. The church has separated him from the people. Eleanor suffered. She saw her name tainted. In the Pope's letters, she was called a concubine, and her children, the fruit of sin. Even at court, many turned away, fearing to bring a curse upon themselves. Her happiness stood on fragile foundations, and the world could collapse at any moment. At night, she wept into her pillow, begging her husband to find a way out. "They hate me," she whispered. "It's not my fault you fell in love with me. Why does God take away our right to be happy?" Leonardo hugged her tightly, but found no answer. He felt that his strength was nothing against the wall the church had erected, and then, what he feared most happened. Eleanor died. This occurred in the year 1200. According to some reports, she died in childbirth, according to others, from illness. She had not yet reached the age of 30. The king wept beside her bed, forgetting titles and grandeur. He kissed her hands, repeating that he would not forgive God for this cruelty. All of Alvaris mourned with him, but in the eyes of the people, her death seemed like a divine punishment. God rejected the unlawful union, the people whispered. Silvana learned of her rival's death in the monastery with a strange feeling. Her heart did not tremble with joy, but with pity. She understood that Eleanor was just a woman, drawn into a game where the stakes were too high. But, at the same time, Silvana knew her time had come. She wrote to Rome, "I am ready to forgive everything. I will remain by his side if that is the Lord's will. Simply return my place to me." Leonardo was left alone. Eleanor's children remained, but they were considered born illegitimately. His union with Silvana continued to be recognized by the church. He struggled with himself. On one side, pride and hatred for the woman he had rejected many years ago. On the other, the fear of losing power and becoming an enemy of all Europe. With every letter from Rome, his resistance weakened. In 1213, Leonardo finally surrendered and officially brought Silvana back to the royal citadel. Verona received Silvana of Severia with a cold wind that wandered through the streets like a ghost of her past. She was met by priests, the people, and even some of the nobility. But there was little joy in this return. At 39 years old, she returned to the palace from which she had been expelled 20 years earlier. Her light hair, streaked with gray, was hidden beneath a pearl diadem, and her eyes, once clear as the northern lake, now held a steel gleam. Leonardo housed her separately, barely spoke to her, and avoided encounters. Their marriage existed only on paper, not in life. Silvana, however, resigned herself. She demanded not love, but only the recognition of her legal rights. Meanwhile, Europe was changing around them. Crusades, wars with the Southern League, conspiracies of barons. But in the heart of Alvarez, this strange drama continued. Two people united by the bonds of marriage, yet strangers to each other, like two islands separated by the sea. A king and a queen, held together not by love, but by the will of the church and the fear of losing power. Leonardo, whose soul was like a fortress, softened with the years. His son Rudolph VII, the heir of his first wife, grew strong, and Leonardo, seeing no threat in Silvana, gradually began to respect her. Their marriage, devoid of love, became a union of duty. She did not give him children, but her presence, like a shadow, reminded him of her right. When Leonardo died in 1223 in Manta, Silvana was by his side. "You were my wife," he said. His voice was weak, like a dying candle. In his will, the humbled Leonardo named Silvana his beloved wife. Though he had stolen 20 years of her life, she outlived him by 20 years. The Queen Dowager lived quietly, almost unnoticed. Her quarters were in the monastery of Saint-Marcel, and later in the abbey of Saint-Jean-de-Joinville. There were no sumptuous receptions or noisy feasts that the court was accustomed to. She was surrounded by books, prayers, and rare visits from trusted people. Many believed she was broken, but those who saw her closely said the same firmness remained in her gaze as in her youth, when she alone confronted the king and all his retinue. Nevertheless, despite all her apparent meekness, Silvana remained a political figure. She continued to maintain ties with her native Severia. Her name was mentioned in diplomatic correspondence. Her existence was a reminder that even the most powerful king is not always master of a marriage sealed by the church. Near the end of her life, Silvana often sat by the window, looking at the monastery garden. Her hair had turned gray, her face covered with wrinkles, but her posture retained its dignity. Sometimes she whispered, "Lord, why did you bring me here? I could have been a happy wife, but I became only a shadow on a foreign throne." But, along with this, there was no bitterness in her heart. She saw how her patience turned into a victory. She survived all the humiliations, but died a queen. When Silvana passed away in 1236, her funeral was modest, but honorable. Monks sang over her coffin, and people said, "She was the most unfortunate and patient of all." She became part of the legend that power is strong, but faith and patience can endure even longer than kings. And her name remained forever in the chronicles alongside the name of the great king, who never managed to shake off the woman who became his destiny.